Okay, guys, I've got a special treat here. This is a great thing for me. I've got with me CPAC Blogger of the Year and conservative blogger extraordinaire Ed Morrissey, who's my personal idol on the conservative blogging world. It's been a great day for me. I interviewed Anita Moncrief earlier, and then I got 12 minutes with Andrew Breitbart, which is about 4 seconds of me asking questions and letting him roll.
Yes.
He's a great interview, the best you can ask for. And now I've got my activist idol there, and now I've got my blogging idol. Ed, thank you so much for taking a few times to speak with me.
Paul, it's great to be talking with you. Thank you very much.
I am a regular visitor of the Thames, the Ed Morrissey Show on Ustream TV. Things have been busy, so I haven't been getting in every day like I used to, but I am known as Loud Talker on the show.
Yes.
I've lots of friends there, Jazz and Jazz Shaw and Weebork and all those guys and gals. It's just great to see. Is a first mate traveling with you on this trip?
Not this time, no. She traveled with me to CPAC.
Yeah, I saw you guys there at CPAC.
And that was the first trip that I'd taken her on. Actually, it was fortuitous because I had no idea that Rush Limbaugh was going to do the introduction thing. Wow. So she happened to be there for that. She got a little taste of how busy these things get, though, and
they are very chaotic.
Yeah, they're pretty tough.
But it's nice. So let's talk about that for a brief second, then. So you had no idea that Rush was going to introduce you?
Had none whatsoever.
What were your feelings when you saw that?
At first, I didn't realize that he was coming on to talk about the award. I thought he was just doing an address, and so when I found out that he was doing that, I was just stunned. You know, sort of like the baby seal sort of thing after the sledgehammer.
He got clubbed in the head.
Got kind of clubbed in the head, and it was like,
and then you got to go speak to the crowd at CPAC.
Yeah, that was good.
Nice. No, you did a great job. I was in the room. It was an amazing speech. It was outstanding to see you there, and a well-deserved award.
Thank you.
Work you've done at Hot Air has been outstanding. It's an amazing team there. I can't imagine working for a better boss than Michelle.
Well, and she's been wonderful. She sold the business, though.
Right.
So now we're working for Salem Communications. We're officially now, and somebody here today said this, you know, that you're now officially the traditional media. You're now the enemy.
You're the mainstream. Oh, no.
I'm mainstream media.
Well, that's
no, talk radio really isn't mainstream media.
I heard my first Hugh Hewitt spot on the drive home last week for hotair.com.
He's great.
He's a great guy.
He's a great guy.
He was the first endorsement I got. When we started this, they did their 100 Days of Obama tour with Bill Bennett and Hugh Hewitt and Michael Medved, and he was, talk football with Hugh, and he'll talk forever.
Oh, yeah. And
I was wearing a Patriots jersey, so he actually started the conversation. He gave me a one-liner, "Hey, this is so-and-so. Thanks for listening." And it's a great guy, but to hear him talking about Hot Air on the radio was fantastic. So that's just a great move for the company. Obviously, a testament to the great work you've been doing. Hot Air is where I go every day. The stories are there. All the team is there. It's outstanding. So thank you for all that great work, and I wish you the best of success going forward.
Well, thank you.
So I want to talk some issues here. I heard you earlier talking to some other fans. The term social justice came up, and I recently blogged on that. And it's one of the many terms I think that the administration is hijacking. Social justice has been practiced by the Catholic Church for over 100 years. It's been addressed specifically by popes. But the difference between what this administration is pushing and what the church pushes is voluntary versus mandatory.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways that you can look at this. First off, if you're talking about it from a perspective of faith, social justice is very important to Catholics and to Christians and for that matter to Jews, to Muslims.
Right.
It is a particular Buddhists. It's a particular is one particular point of unanimity that you find in the world's great religions is that there is usually a commitment to the poor and to social justice and that sort of thing. From a faith perspective, if you're forced into doing that, it's not the same as doing it yourself.
Right.
And so government intervention in that actually sort of leaves you without the opportunity, or better yet, maybe an excuse to say, well, I don't need to do it because I'm paying the government's doing it for me. That's not what you're called to as a Christian, at least, as a Catholic Christian, and I would imagine as a Jew, as a Muslim, as a Buddhist, and that sort of thing. It's not about consigning that issue to somebody else to deal with for you, to act as your agent in. The idea is that you're supposed to be doing that yourself. But even more importantly, I think what's being hijacked, and it's not just the Obama administration, by the way, that's hijacked this. I mean, the Catholic Church to some extent.
Yes.
In its support for some of these top-down government programs is a bit complicit in this.
Yes.
As are other more liberal churches in the Christian faith. And the catechism is pretty specific, Catholic catechism. And
Right.
again, I'm going to talk from a perspective of being
Understood.
a Catholic
Yes.
because that's what I am, and that's really, I don't know enough about Catholics yet. I'm certainly not going to talk about everybody else's religion.
It's a life learning lesson.
It is a life learning lesson, absolutely. But the catechism talks about social justice. It does not say that social justice equals a government program. And so I think you can argue as a Catholic that a government program is the best way to deliver social justice.
Right.
But what you can't argue is that it's the only way to deliver social justice. And one way that you know that is that the Catholic Church itself delivers social justice programs. In fact, they're a lot more effective, in my opinion, than governments are, especially abroad and even here in the United States.
Right.
If you're interested in social justice, for instance, and you're talking about an African nation, with a couple of exceptions, I think South Africa would be one exception. There's a couple of very stable countries in Africa that don't fall under this, so I don't want to overgeneralize here. But generally speaking, the most of the nations on the African continent are corrupt.
Yes.
And they are, some of them are just flat out evil. You
Violent,
wouldn't let,
yes.
you would not let, you couldn't in all good conscience let that kind of a government administer your social justice programs because what you're going to get is deep injustice.
Right.
Same thing's true in some of the countries in Asia. Especially some of the countries with which we have become so familiar.
Yes.
Southwest Asia especially.
Yes.
And so those are you're not going to let those kinds of governments run those kinds of programs either. It's better to have people do it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the Catholic Church, that's what you get. The Catholic Church doesn't run any governments other than the Vatican, which is a quasi-government state that people use for consider a country mainly for diplomatic purposes. The Catholic Church is a private, non-governmental organization
Right.
around the world. And even in the United States, Paul, I mean, the Catholic Church operates, I believe, somewhere around 600 hospitals.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or at least 600 hospitals and clinics. That might be a cumulative number between both. And they're catering specifically to the poor, the people who can't afford
Yes.
health care anyplace else. And that's, I think, just from my perspective, I think the Catholic Church should be looking at that saying, look, government doesn't do that very well.
Right. You're filling a void that exists.
You're filling a void that exists. And their argument is going to be, well, then if government steps in, we won't have that so much of a void. The problem is that when government steps in, and we've seen it in Canada, we've seen it in the UK and elsewhere, is that government tends to eliminate providers. They tend to drive providers out of the market. And then what you get left with are the people who aren't necessarily terribly good at it, and you end up waiting months to get any sort of medical attention
Yes,
whatsoever.